distinguished delegates, civil society representatives, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I want to begin by thanking my dear friend, Jose Manuel, and his team here at ECLAC for ensuring that the Caribbean was represented on the various panels yesterday and also on the remaining panels of this forum. The Caribbean perspective and experience were clearly expressed on all of the pertinent issues covered on our agenda thus far. This is critical because going forward, the Caribbean will have to work much more closely with Latin America to ensure that our shared priorities and regional differences are considered at every level of engagement. We want our brothers and sisters in Latin America to keep in mind that while the Caribbean is the most beautiful place on earth to visit, we have serious challenges that we need your support and solidarity to help overcome. In the challenging period ahead, we will all have to place a higher premium on South-South cooperation. At every juncture, we must seize the opportunity to strengthen our cooperation as a region. I want to acknowledge the very strong partnerships between the Caribbean and Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, and Costa Rica, among others. As a vice chair of both ECLAC and the Caribbean Development and Cooperation Committee, the British Virgin Islands is committed to working with the Commission to support the respective chairs of these bodies, Peru and Trinidad and Tobago, to foster greater collaboration between the Caribbean and Latin America, especially on productive development policies that can help boost productivity and unleash our economic dynamism. I believe we are at the stage where we require a stronger coordination mechanism in which we can more effectively cooperate with greater participation by the Caribbean. We need to begin discussing what level of social and economic integration is possible between the Caribbean and Latin America to help spur our social and economic integration and transformation. We must be imaginative in our approach. Excellencies, as we have discussed at this critical juncture, it is fairly clear that accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, the ABAS, hinges largely on the outcomes of multilateral negotiations, especially COP30 and the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. For those Caribbean small island developing states like the British Virgin Islands, success would be a sustainable development compact in which none of the SIDS are excluded because of their per capita income, but rather included based on their vulnerability. I sincerely hope that these multilateral meetings will deliver positive results, but I am conscious that the international environment has changed. The priorities of our international partners in North America and Europe have shifted, and the unfolding trade wars are set to pile additional financial pressure on Caribbean households and governments in societies where the cost of living is already high. Looming in the background are the worsening negative effects of climate change on the region. A suboptimal outcome at FFD4 and COP30 would require Caribbean governments to rethink once again how they finance sustainable development and climate resilience. This, however, is already the posture of the British Virgin Islands and many of the associate members of ECLAC, who are not eligible for development finance or climate finance, despite our vulnerability and gaps in development assistance to support us. To progress our sustainable development, we have turned our attention to domestic resource mobilization to help avoid unsustainable debt. Our immediate focus is on boosting underperforming revenue streams that have the potential to yield more financial resources. For example, we have identified the marine sector as the revenue earner with the biggest potential for raising additional revenue. At present, we are grossly undercharging for the use of our sailing waters, among other things. Foreign yacht charter companies earn $50,000 to $100,000 per week during the tourism season on sailing excursions in the British Virgin Islands. The government charges these companies a mere fraction of that amount with the license they require to conduct their activities in our jurisdiction. Thus, we are in the process of rectifying this imbalance so that the government's fees better reflect the economic value of our precious marine resources that must be used sustainably in line with SDG 14. This should also be the case for our other natural attractions, such as beaches and national parks. Stakeholders have informed us that tourists will still pay a premium for sailing excursions and the enjoyment of our beaches and natural environment. The additional revenue the government collects will help fund the implementation of our National Sustainable Development Plan that is aligned with the 2030 agenda. It will also supplement an existing environmental levy on tourists departing our islands that capitalizes our Climate Change Trust Fund. Excellencies, this is the course of action the British Virgin Islands is taking as we await the outcomes of FFD4 and COP30 that will give us a clear indication of whether the 2030 agenda and the ABAS will be accelerated. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the UN system for their tremendous support to the British Virgin Islands. Just over a week ago, my government and the UN Resident Coordinator's Office in Barbados officially launched the UN Roadmap for improving access to development finance for Eastern Caribbean territories. We sincerely hope the roadmap will help to unlock support for the sustainable development and climate resilience of the associate members of ECLAC. As I close, Mr. Chair and Executive Secretary, let me just say that the future of the Caribbean rests with our young people. What we invest in them today is what will make the difference tomorrow. It is they who will continue the work that we have begun to create a more just and habitable world. When we convene here again next year, let us ensure that as many Caribbean youth groups as possible are represented to engage with their Latin American counterparts and to be present with us, and they have done so well thus far. The future depends on them. I thank you.